So I thought, well, I'll lend him the money. So that's what I did.
Bank on Dave, he says, although thanks to extensive red tape, he's not actually allowed to call himself a bank. And he's keen to differentiate himself from banks in other ways too. He offers 5% on savings, and he lends that money out to his local community. And no bonuses. Any profits go to charity.
Nailed it now, Steve. Yeah.
There just isn't a Dave in every town, more's the pity. So his isn't a model which could be rolled out nationwide in its current form. But financial experts say lessons can be learnt for a healthier banking system.
One point is clear, and this is the point that the Bank of Dave makes, in a way, is that banking has just moved far too far away from its roots. And this basic need to understand who you're lending to and who you're saving with has been lost in this kind of mad rush for highly leveraged gains over the last 20 years.
Dave's ultimate goal is to bring banking back to its roots. No more faceless conglomerates where computers and mavericks make the decisions and the 1% pocket unimaginable bonuses. Instead, local banks for local people, run by the community to benefit the community. It's not a new idea. In fact, it's how banking used to be before the mega bucks and mega banks stepped in. And Dave's starting to get some political support.
You have to take savers' money and invest it in real productive activity and to take responsibility for doing it, which is not the way that banking currently works. In his comical, kind of crazy way, he is showing the way to a better banking system, which is responsible, local, in touch with entrepreneurship, and which actually could be the basis for going forwards.
There's certainly got to be some way forwards. As wave after wave of scandal hits the financial sector, banking on Dave and others like him looks more and more attractive.
One of the sayings I use a lot is, people who rob banks go to prison. Banks who rob people get paid bonuses. That has to stop.
Laura Smith, RT, Birmingham.
Bank on Dave being more interesting, of course, than Bank on the Royal Bank. And what they talked about was getting back to what banking used to be, was a local service benefiting local people. Of course, you just have to take a look at the way that banks are taken right out of locals' hands and put into international investors and put into their policies. Look at the way that unemployment is gone, and you see that banks are running the monetary system wrong.
Well, the thing is, too, Dave is offering a 5% interest rate for savers.
I know.
And savings accounts in Europe have been decimated. They're at like 0% or they're at negative interest.
It costs
you money.
money
to keep your money in the bank.
Banks make money up from nowhere. That's the way that it works. They charge interest, which causes bankruptcies. And if you have a logical mind, go and look up fractional reserve lending. It used to be a case that local bankers did this, and our country, it thrived. After World War II, the most incredible, amazing onrush of productivity occurred because there were regulations on banks, and we didn't have a great big international bank running all of our local national banks.
No.
Okay? So make sure you do your research on that and realize that we've got to get control of our monetary system and get the cash issuing business out of bankers' hands.
And I think we need to start prosecuting bankers criminally.
Yes. So every time you hear the word economy, substitute the word bank profits for the word economy on mainstream media. You will understand the way that things work. And make sure that you start thinking about holding those bankers locally accountable for the national mess. Remember, 50% unemployment with the grads of 2012 is a direct result of monetary mismanagement. We have to take a quick break right now. Okay? So we're going to take a quick break.
Well,
2 minutes?
I think we need to hear from our favorite pundit, Mr. Rex Murphy.
Last week, Canada's science minister refused to say if he believed in evolution because a question about his religious beliefs was inappropriate. So it is then with the utmost delicacy that I say to Minister Goodyear, grow up, boy. And by the way, I think you can safely cancel the feasibility studies into the cost of a fence around the edge of the earth so nobody falls off. So it seems our science minister believes dinosaurs went extinct because they were running late for the Ark. If your paleontological research comes from baby nursery themes, then you're in the wrong job. Having a creationist science minister is like having Gandhi as your Minister of Defence. This year marks the 150th anniversary of Darwin's Origin of the Species. The Vatican recently had a conference to study it. Now think about that. When it comes to evolution, the Pope is more forward-thinking than our science minister. Goodyear changed the story later in the week and now says he does believe in evolution because, and I quote, "We are evolving every year, whether it is to, as a chiropractor, walking on cement versus anything else, whether it's running shoes or high heels." Religion is not the issue. The issue is that clearly the man is an idiot. And even worse, we seem to have appointed a science minister whose previous experience was as a chiropractor. Of course, he's not without his defenders. CanWest Global Executive Vice President David Asper leapt to his defence, calling the whole thing a liberal war on faith. Later that day, news broke that the Conservative government is planning to aid his nearly bankrupt broadcaster. And he said unto them, "Thy faith have saved thee. Go in peace." How did we get in this mess? Well, let me take a page from Mr. Goodyear's book and thank the creator. For the National, I'm Rex Murphy.
I love working around here, man. Welcome to the show. It is excellent to be here with you on a fantastic Friday. Of course, I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
We are proud to bring you all kinds of news and information, and we've got a municipal sustainability project underway right now. What we've done is we've dropped off a whole bunch of letters to all the city councilors. We went and dropped off a whole bunch more to them, and we've got an interview coming up with Mayor Walter Gray in Kelowna, British Columbia next Friday.
Dealing with that issue?
Yes, talking about homelessness. We're going to talk about poverty issues with the mayor. And of course, they said, could you provide us with the questions ahead of time? What do you think my answer was? You're talking to the wrong pirates if you think you're going to get a pre-scripted question.
Well, we should ask him about how he thinks that Kelowna is not that unaffordable.
Yes, attainable. Remember, use the correct political spin on that, and we are taking him to task on that to explain exactly that how you're not supposed to lose respect by using a word like attainable. But let's get on to subject here, okay?
Okay.
What we were talking about before the break was banking.
Banking.
Yes, banking is one of my favorite subjects. There are solutions to Bank of Dave.
The Bank of Dave.
Okay.
Or you could go to...
you could go to the
HSBC, which is in a little bit of trouble.
HSBC says it is likely to face criminal charges in the US over a failure to prevent money laundering. Europe's biggest bank is also anticipating a fine significantly bigger than the 1.2 billion euros it had earlier made provision for. That statement came as the London-based lender reported an underlying quarterly profit of almost 4 billion euros. It was helped in that by a bigger-than-expected drop in losses from bad debts and a solid performance by its investment banking arm.
As in, talking about getting caught with your hands in the cookie jar.
Oh, yeah. Well, they may actually get criminal charges. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, when a banker gets thrown in jail, we can all celebrate. Remember, Iceland threw its bankers in jail. The country of Iceland has bounty hunters collecting bankers around the world who screwed the country.
Actually, there are some people in Ireland taking a look at the Iceland model now, too, because their politicians are so spineless and useless.
Yeah, I know. Something like locally here. Of course, that bank getting sued, HSBC, remember, they've got caught money laundering. A lot of banks get caught committing crimes we never hear about. Of course.
But isn't fraud a crime?
Well, not according to the conservatives.
Oh, that's right. Or not according to the regulators who used to work for the banks and will probably go back to working at the banks after their stint as regulators is done.
Wait a second. I'm confused. You mean our regulators are issued by the banking industry itself?
They kind of tend to write the regulations.
Isn't that the inmates running the asylum? Oh, wait a second. It's Canadian banking. Barclays is getting sued right now. Here's the news.
Again.
5% is today's daily digit in Europe. The amount Barclays shares dropped after it warned investors it's facing 2 new investigations by US regulators. The bank says it's close to being fined over an investigation into the manipulation of power prices between 2006 and 2008. And it's being investigated over whether its business relationships with third parties complied with US laws. The double blow was made worse by third quarter results. After adjustments, pre-tax profits were down 23% to just over £1 billion. A series of charges were blamed, including £700 million for missold payment protection insurance in the UK. It also lost £1.1 billion on the value of its own debt, bringing the total loss for the quarter to £47 million. On top of the recent interest rate rigging scandal, asset manager Alpesh Patel says Barclays could now follow UBS and start shedding staff.
They do need to cut costs because that's what's killing the share price, is how much is being paid to employees and staff, and therefore the earnings tend to be depressed, the profits tend to be depressed, and therefore the PE multiples are not being reflected in the share price.
Investors are concerned the legal problems could handicap the new CEO's efforts to overhaul the company. The 5% drop also reflects the fact that Barclays' performance in investment banking was weaker than most of its rivals.
Ah, yes, Barclays getting sued. I always enjoy it because, of course, it points out the fact CBC doesn't cover the story.
Oh, no.
Okay. Now, if you really want to take a look at how biased and how backwards the CBC is, realize that they have no idea who Ron Paul is. They have no idea what fractional reserve lending is, banks making money up from nowhere. And they have no idea where South America or Africa is. You have whole countries, hundreds of millions of people going through news, going through revolutions. If you want to see myopia, look up Argentina right now. Buenos Aires going through the same thing that Greece is. And where is CBC News?
They're talking about the hockey strike?
Yeah, I know. Something so we turned on CBC News World. They're focusing on one manufacturing plant that exploded in somewhere in Ontario. 1 in 5 children going hungry, not on there. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands going hungry. And where's the story? Okay, but of course, one accident at one plant.
Well, that's news, don't you know? If it bleeds, it leads, right?
Let's take a reason to smile. I need it. Okay, we got it.
News in a nutshell. In the news today is the god-awful particle. From a gigantic accelerator spanning the nation, massive amounts of matter collide and reveal the building block behind everything. The god-awful particle, a force always suspected, now fully discovered and unleashed. It's the incredible force behind endlessly repeating chain reactions. It's the invisible energy field driving countless recurring clashes of matter. It's what breathes life into spirals of ever-increasing mass. The god-awful particle is the invisible element behind the forces of dark matter. It's what sparked the Big Bang and the cycle that continues to this day. Feeding complex attractions that enrich energy and feeding the basic elements of life, the god-awful particle exerts a powerful force on all organisms. If the world around you seems to be a repeating cycle of repetitious ruts, you can thank the god-awful particle, the biggest little thing in the universe. Good night, and good God.
You